Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Ichigo awoke his true powers to save his mother. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. What If copy system in Naruto will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if Transmigrated in One Piece and becoming a marine? What if Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze? What if Transmigrated into a nightmare mode Dragon Ball world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 36, Lost Memories. Karakura Town Shopping Plaza. This is going to take some looking into. Kisuke's words echoed in the mind of the hybrid. I have an idea on who's behind this, but nothing definitive yet. I'll try to find any record of the girl you're talking about. For now, Ichigo, you are to keep an eye on this Senna girl, his father and captain ordered. Until further notice, she's a person of interest. See if you can find anything out. Ichigo made his way back into the plaza, carrying a special ribbon Yuryu made that was able to serve as a tracker for those familiar with its erasure trace. Now let's just hope she actually stuck around. Ichigo muttered to himself, looking around the crowd of people. Some browsing, some eating, some watching stage performances, and nothing too out of the ordinary. Ichigo! He heard his loyal mod soul call out to him. He looked up to the second level to see Senna and Khan, in his body, waiting for him. You're back, Khan said with a smile. Everything's okay around here, LT. Senna beamed as Ichigo jumped up to them and returned to his body. I found this really nice ribbon, but Khan wouldn't let me have it, she said with a pout. Ichigo raised a quizzical eyebrow to the girl. Did you have money to buy it? Ichigo asked, making the girl chuckle nervously. Ichigo sighed as he pulled out the silk ribbon Yuryu gave him. Here, he offered, taking the yellow ribbon out of her hair. Our third seat likes sewing and made this. He handed her the new ribbon. She gasped in delight before tying her hair with the new ribbon. Oh, I love it! She cheered, looking at herself in the window. How do I look? She asked, getting right into Ichigo's personal space. He blushed hard at the sudden closeness as he looked at her and the ribbon. Yeah. He turned away, still blushing hard. It looks cute. Senna looked puzzled and backed away before adopting a mischievous smirk. Falling in love with me, eh? She teased the blushing hybrid. Before he could protest, she took off running away. If you catch me, I'll go on a date with you. Ichigo! She sang, getting a head start on him. What does she run on? Ichigo groaned, feeling exhausted from chasing her around all day. He went after her as she disappeared into the crowds. He almost lost track before he used the spirit threads from her ribbon to find her, standing on top of a building that was the focal point for the hanging lights. Soon, everything went quiet as all eyes turned towards her and the lights turned on. She began walking on the cables like a tightrope. Ah crap! He cursed, looking around the crowd to make sure no one was watching him. Taking a breath, he disappeared with her Renkyaku and bringer light, reappearing behind Senna as she was a foot out on the cable. Not taking the same risk, he created a platform of erasure under his feet and mimicked her feet just as she was falling off the side. He caught her hand and spun her back up onto the cable. The crowd gasped and applauded, thinking it was just a show. Ha? Wah? She asked before looking at Ichigo, noticing the glowing footholds beneath him. You cheater, she said, puffing her cheeks into an adorable pout. Then she brightened up as she began to sway. Soon she started dancing, pulling Ichigo into her rhythm as someone started playing music. She giggled as she continued to dance, Ichigo soon joining in to simply avoid falling. drop, and shunpa. She whispered before letting go, disappearing in a flow of autumn leaves. Ichigo followed suit, tracking her easily. Ta-da! She cheered, standing on a pedestal amongst the crowds with the hybrid next to her. The crowds let out their applause as Ichigo dragged her away from the limelight. Food court? That was entirely reckless of you. Ichigo scolded as they took the time to eat. This city is known for several spiritually aware people. You could have exposed things they weren't ready to understand. It's fine, isn't it? Senna mumbled, pouting while eating her sandwich. They just thought it was part of a show. Not the point, rookie. Ichigo growled before calming down. Just be more careful for now. Something big is going on. This caught Senna's attention as she watched Ichigo. These strange souls are called blanks and some group is using them to find something called the Shinenju. Who's using the blanks? She asked, continuing to eat. We don't know yet. Ichigo told her. We have someone scanning the archives, so we'll find out soon though. And this, Shernan, thingy? What does it look like? She asked again, leaning back in her chair. Ichigo that for a moment. Urahara did say it was known as the memory rock, implying a stone of some kind. Ichigo mused to himself, trying to come up with an idea of what he was looking for. But he also said object, implying that it could be anything. All we know is that the blanks are attracted to it. That's why we have teams patrolling the different areas of Karakura to look for any large group of blanks. Sounds like we just have to wait until they find anything substantial. Senna said, finishing her meal. What are we going to do if we find this rock or the people behind what's happening? Take the Shinenju into protective custody probably. Ichigo guessed, taking a drink as he thought. As for the people behind this, stop them from doing anything heinous. They'll probably be executed if what they're doing threatens Soul Society or the world of the living. He thought to himself as Senna leaned in closer to him. Am I partnered with ULT? She asked with an expectant smile. Please say yes. You're so much fun. She said, looking at him with a bright smile and puppy dog eyes. I'm never going to win against that, am I? He thought as he felt his will crumble like dry sand. Yes, you and I will be together. I'm supposed to keep an eye on her anyway, so what's the harm? Great. She cheered before pointing at the Ferris wheel. Now let's go on that. Ichigo looked at the ride before sighing. What's with you and heights? He asked, still tired from running around the city while chasing her. It's a good vantage point to see around the city. She said, surprising Ichigo with a reasonable answer. Plus, I like being way up high. Everything just gets clearer, you know? She jumped down before pulling Ichigo up and hugging onto his arm. Besides, it's a get way to end a date. Ichigo's head shot up in surprise. Since when did this become a date? He asked, his face turning red from embarrassment. When you caught me, remember? She answered, tapping him on the nose. Ichigo thought back and remembered she did say that. Even though you cheated with that Shunpa and Reisher platforms. Ichigo gave her a deadpan look. How do I know you didn't use Flash Step to lose me? He asked, making her laugh nervously. Fair's fair, rookie. He teased as she pouted at him. Call me Senna. She demanded. Then call me Ichigo. He responded, completely calm as they made their way to the Ferris wheel. Once they were on, Ichigo did as she suggested and scanned the area. They reached the top before he noticed something. The once crowded plaza was now virtually empty. Where did the people go? He asked himself. It wasn't too early that everyone would go home and there wasn't any trace of an accident that would force the people otherwise. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice Senna staring at the river that cut through the city. Hey, I don't think we'll find out anything new for tonight. She said, a little nervously for Ichigo's taste. Why don't we call it a night and try again tomorrow? She's hiding something. Ichigo thought to himself as they got off the ride, the plaza suddenly full of people again. Yeah, okay. He agreed, making it look like he wasn't suspicious. Head back to the barracks and we'll try again tomorrow, he said, making his way through the crowd. Okay, she's not heading for the Shoten, he thought, feeling her run off in a different direction before using Shuunpa. Time to find out what you're hiding, he thought as he gave chase, unaware that the people began to disappear again. Graveyard. She headed straight for the graveyard in the city. Memories of her family, of their funerals, playing through her head as she wandered among the shrines and tombstones. She remembered the priests chanting prayers, her parents grieving her death, and the mourners offering solace to each other. She was so lost in the jumble of memories, she didn't notice the blanks that suddenly appeared. She screamed as she tried to escape the zombie-esque souls that crowded around her, fear overriding reason as she tried to find a way away from the grabby white souls. That's when she felt an attack coming from above and jumped out of the way. Who are you? She demanded as the man rose from his attack. He was a dark-skinned man with thick lips that wore a green shihakusho and hakama with a green breastplate inlaid with dark bronze. He was a large and muscular man, enough to suggest strength but not speed. In his hands were dual chakram blades. You've got better reflexes than I expected, the man said arrogantly, rising from his crouch for the next assault. Senna ejected herself out of her body and grasped her sword. Why are you here, and what do you want? She demanded, getting ready to fight herself. The man stood up and moved toward her. I'm going to be your escort, he said, making it clear she wasn't being given a choice. Our commander, Ganryu, has commissioned orders to summon you. She glared at him before coming to the conclusion that they might be involved with Ichigo's investigation. He summoned me? She asked, trying to fish for information. Who is this guy? I've never heard of him. That information doesn't concern you, he said, looking down on her still. So what are you going to do about it? Jai. She heard someone from behind her say. There were 4 more people in similar dress as the now named Jai. A small guy with armor framing his face, a purple-haired girl with a red obi and plenty of cleavage, a giant cloth-masked figure with giant clubs, and a slender pale man. I told you not to waste time talking, the small guy said. You should know better than to jump out like that, the woman scolded while Jai just laughed. This'll only take a second, he said confidently as Senna launched her attack, leaping to deliver a strong swing, only for him to block it. Stop, that tickles, he said before he punched her in the stomach and sent her tumbling away. He followed it up by jumping on top of her while she was still lying on the ground. That's enough of that, she heard a familiar voice say before a fist slammed into the thug's face. She looked up to see Ichigo standing over her protectively. If you have something against a member of my squad, I insist you bring your complaints to me first, he said, getting between her and the would-be kidnappers. Who the hell are you? Jai yelled out, blood leaking from his misshapen nose. Ichigo brought his right hand up, his thumb cloaked in his crimson ryatsu, and flicked it. In the same instant, Jai's elbow exploded, taking a majority of his arm. Arg! My arm! He screamed in pain as he fell to the ground. Bala di Francotirador. Ichigo muttered as he brought his hand down, his thumb smoking from the release of power. Senna! Why are you in a graveyard? Ichigo asked, unsheathing his blade while his opponent was writhing in pain. Why don't you mind your own business? She yelled at him as she got up to fight again. Senna, you're a soul reaper in the living world, he explained as Jai got back up. That means you're a member of my squad. He flared his ryatsu, letting the pressure weigh down on his opponents. I never abandon my allies, he growled as the green-clad warriors faded into shadow, one by one. That's a new one, Ichigo muttered as he let up on the pressure. Who's Ganryu? Ichigo muttered, recalling the name before his intervention. From behind, Senna tried to sneak away, until Ichigo grabbed her obi and held her up in front of him. So, I said head back to the barracks, Ichigo scolded the flinching girl. You apparently heard, go to the graveyard, have no backup, and almost get kidnapped. What was so important that you had to come here for? He asked, letting her down so she could stand. My entire family is buried here. She explained, looking nostalgic as she stared at the tombstones. It's a little fuzzy, but I have memories of when I was alive. I just wanted to see those places to confirm those memories, she said, giving a sad smile. Sorry. I'll head back to base now, LT. She told him before Ichigo grabbed her again. That's not happening, he said, making her look at him in surprise. Those guys matched the description of our main suspects. They just attacked you. You're possibly in more danger. You're going nowhere on your own. She shrunk a little in fear of the hybrid. You're coming with me, rookie. Kurosaki household. So, Masaki said in a deathly sweet tone, how did you charm this one, Ichigo? Ichigo and Senna were standing side by side, most disapproving stares with one actually looking serious. His father was the only one that knew immediately what was happening. This is a new member of the squad that recently became a target of a suspected threat to the living world, Ichigo explained, earning a look of relief from the women in his family. I don't go after every pretty girl I see, Mom. He groaned while Senna introduced herself to the family, blushing the whole while. Hello, I'm Senna. She bowed respectfully. He thinks I'm pretty. She teased him earlier, but she thought he was being polite. Thanks for having me. I'll go get a bath ready, Yuzu said, happy to help her brother and father. I'll get the bed ready, Karen said, heading for the guest room. Masaki simply whacked Ichigo on the head. That's for not calling that you wouldn't be home till late. She pouted. I made such a nice dinner too. She went to help Karen while Ishin made a subtle nod to his son. Ichigo led Senna up to his room. You can rest here while we wait, he said, taking a seat at his desk while returning Khan to his stuffed lion body. Boys' rooms are always so boring, she said while taking a seat on his bed. But your family seems nice. My dad was way different. Her expression changed as she reflected a painful memory. Hey, everything all right? Ichigo said, snapping her out of her paws. Yep, she said, quickly recovering from the memory. You talked pretty openly about Soul Reaper stuff in front of your family though. Probably because Dad's the captain of our squad, the one in charge of the world of the living, Ichigo explained. And yes, I earned my position. It wasn't given to me because of my relation. I know, she agreed. The way you handled those jerks at the graveyard was just so wow. She cheered, kicking off her shows and acting out the events from earlier that night. That reminds me, Ichigo said, recalling the name. That guy said someone named Ganryu wanted you. Any idea why? She stopped her playing and dropped back down, sitting on his bed. No idea, she said before pointing an accusing finger at the hybrid. If you hadn't shown up, I could have gotten more information. Or get kidnapped like they were planning to do, he said, countering her argument. Good rule of thumb. If you're unsure about a fight, immediately release your Zanpakuto. There was a knock at his door. He opened it up to reveal his mother. Tell Senna the bath is ready whenever she is, she said with the gentle smile that was prevalent in his memories. They looked to his bed, only to find Senna already asleep. Ichigo was going to wake her before feeling his mother's grasp on his shoulder. From what you said, it's been a long day. Let her rest. Ichigo returned her smile before they heard movement, finding Senna snuggling into his bed with moans of delight. Ichigo's muffled name was heard. Didn't charm this one, huh? Ichigo's just a natural with the ladies, Masaki, Ishin said, pulling his embarrassed son away from his mother. Look, Ichigo, communications with Soul Society are still down, the entire squad is patrolling the city, and we haven't heard from Urahara yet. I want you to head to Yamamoto and tell him what's going on, he ordered, ejecting Ichigo from his body again. It's weird when I keep switching between these bodies. Ichigo groaned before pulling open a garganta and jumping through it. He flew through the dark empty expanse, guided by the glowing road he created for himself, toward a place that felt familiar. His only guide in the infinite expanse between dimensions. He found his destination as he tore open a hole into Soul Society. He came through to the other side and landed in front of Unohana. Once he settled, he found himself in Yamamoto's office with Yukitake, Kairaku, Urahara, Unohana, and Yamamoto as they were discussing something. Bad timing? He asked the collection of the wisest members of the Gotii. We actually sent a runner to find you, Ichigo. Yukitake answered. Do you have any new information you might want to share first? Only that the leader of the guys behind this is named Ganryu and he wants Senna for some reason. A look of surprise flashed across the faces of Yukitake and Kairaku. Unohana seemed to steel herself while the commander let out a tired sigh. After the war with the Quincy, Soul Society worked on creating something resembling an ordered government. Genryusai started, delving into the past. Most of the stronger noble clans and more sensible captains wanted to have a democratic system while others tried to rule like royals. One of these clans eventually tried to seize control by force, but was defeated easily. As punishment and an example, we banished them to the Precipice World, where we thought they would eventually perish. That family was known as the Ryodoji clan. Urahara continued in place of Yamamoto. And Ganryu was one of the last remaining members of the main family. We suspect that they'd been living as nomads, going from one valley of screams to the next. This was the first time there was ever such a quantity of blanks, so it's suspected that they're using them to mess with the one between Soul Society of the living world. And what does this have to do with Senna? Ichigo asked the scientist. Yukitake was about to answer before a glare from his old teacher kept him silent. Why does he want her? I have an idea, but I need to finish searching the databases. Urahara answered smoothly. Since there was a massive influx of recruits, it's taking some time to shift through all the files. For now, continue your mission. Yamamoto ordered. Protect the Shinenju. His young pupil nodded before reopening a garganta to return to the living world. How soon, Urahara? He asked the eccentric man in front of him. Urahara pulled out his fan and tapped his chin in thought. Mayuri assures me he'll finish both projects by tomorrow. He answered, already thinking about the possibilities of the joint projects they could work on. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers. Ichigo's Punishment. Now go and make me proud. Masaki told Ranjaku, who was clad in a bikini. The strawberry blonde winked confidently to the Quincy as she made her way to the bathroom, where Ichigo was taking a shower. Yuria showed up to deliver a report to Ishin about what they found. Masaki Obasan? He asked his distant relative, catching her attention. Ichigo always told me about you in nothing but praise as a gentle person. Why are you, essentially, torturing Ichigo with this? Masaki gave the boy a teasing smile. I assure you, Yuryu, I have nothing but love for my children. She said, just as Ichigo let out a scream. I'll stop when I feel like he's been appropriately punished for becoming such a naughty boy in my absence. Yuryu's teenage struggle. Hello, Yuryu. Mayuri greeted, having resorted to the second option of procuring a certain sample he wanted. Hunting down the Quincy that had access to whatever at the Karakura hospital. I was wondering. Ichigo already told me what you wanted. Yuria quickly responded. And no, we do not have any of what you're looking for at the Karakura hospital. You sicko. He said, not letting Mayuri finish. Damn. The skeletal man cursed, fishing out the photos of his daughter from his pocket. This whole venture was a waste of my time. He was about to tear up the provocative pictures with furious abandon before he noticed a blush on the Quincy's face. You want them? Yuria fidgeted, memories of when he was almost assaulted by the girl flashing in his mind. He couldn't deny that she was certainly attractive though. How much? The Quincy asked, caving into his teenage hormones. Mayuri looked indignant. Are you suggesting that I'm so depraved that I'd sell erotic pictures of my daughter? He growled at the human. Because if so, 2,000 can for the lot. Up front.
he said, calming down instantly. Yuryu began to pull out his wallet. Chapter 37, Boiling Point. Karakura Town. The next morning came and the search for the Shinenju and the Ryodoji clan started again. Ishin left for Soul Society to help plan with the other captains while his seated squad members took over the search. Ichigo and Senna went back to the train station, being the first located sighting of the blanks en masse. The place became crowded with most of the people walking around, almost aimlessly. "I'm bored," Senna whined. "How much longer are we going to stay here?" They were waiting for 15 minutes. "This is where those blanks first showed up, remember?" Ichigo stated, scanning the groups of people. "It's not usually this crowd around this time. What's happening?" He wondered as he watched the blank expressions of the people as they walked by. "Anyway, stay close to me. Which would work better if you'd stop running off on your own," he said, turning to find her already gone. "Why am I not surprised?" he said before following her trail of spirit threads. "Did you forget that you were attacked last night?" Ichigo asked, stopping when he saw Senna talking to a soul of a crying child, trying to comfort him. "He says his name's Tomoya," Senna explained when she noticed Ichigo. "Said his father and him were going to the festival in their car. He took a nap and when he woke up, he was all alone." She explained the story the crying boy just conveyed to her. "He's probably in heaven by now," Ichigo said to the kid. "No, he's not," Tomoya argued. "He's out there looking for me right now." "I know he is." "Then how about Ichigo and I help you look for him?" Senna suggested. "We'll all find him together." Ichigo groaned at getting stuck babysitting two children now. They started off toward where Tomoya said his father would be waiting. "Senna?" Ichigo called to the girl. "Aren't we in the middle of something?" he said, trying to remind her about the attack and the blanks. "Don't we also have no leads?" she countered, shutting the hybrid up. "Besides, Soul Reapers are supposed to help." "Aren't we?" she said with a smile before continuing to follow the young boy. "She's not wrong," he muttered before joining the two as they proceeded on the long walk to wherever the festival was supposed to be. They spent a couple of hours searching the city, Senna's infectious energy and cheer pushing him to continue the journey without complaint. All the leads and searching eventually led to a shrine at the top of a hill. "Why are you trying so hard?" Ichigo finally asked Senna when they saw the paper lanterns. "You had no guarantee that there was a festival or that his dad would still be around. It's going to be a long journey for that kid," Senna replied instantly, giving a melancholic smile. "This is his last wish before that trip, so I'd like to see him off with a smile. I can't bear to perform a kanso on a scared little kid like that," she said in a surprising moment of maturity. They entered the shrine, Senna helping Tomoya look for his father while Ichigo watched the crowd of people aimlessly wandering about. "This isn't right," he thought to himself as the kid's father found them, getting into a tearful reunion. "They seem like they're talking, but I can't hear anything. It's almost as if they're—" No, he heard the father and child say their final piece. "I guess you were so wrapped up in helping Tomoya that you didn't even notice," the father said with a smile. "All the souls that are gathered here, I was able to find this place thanks to them." Ichigo's eyes widened. "These people are souls?" He continued to think, coming closer to an answer that he didn't want. "They don't have soul chains, they seem to be moving about aimlessly. What if we couldn't find any blanks because they didn't look like blanks?" He thought back to the shopping plaza and how it seemed to clear out while he and Senna was on the Ferris wheel, the train station that was crowded during an odd time that day, and now here. What if they were all blanks? That would mean that Senna had the Shinenju, or worse, is the Shinenju. He asked Yamamoto a while ago about his time alive. To the ancient captain's knowledge, no Shinigami could remember their time alive. The process of reincarnation washes away past memories by the time they fully become Shinigami. "Don't you understand?" Tomoya said as father and son began glowing, signaling their passage to the next life. "They're here because of you." I'm surprised you didn't know. If it wasn't for you, they wouldn't be here.
The boy explained as the two expressed their thanks one last time. Ichigo cursed as his suspicions were confirmed, his hand going for his Shinigami badge.
Why me?
He heard Senna ask in a shaky voice, scared at the idea of whatever was going on.
Why are they all attracted to me?
Ichigo turned to her as she looked at him with frightened eyes.
Ichigo. I think. I must be, is it true?
Ichigo put away his badge before pulling the scared girl in for a hug.
Senna, he said, rubbing her back soothingly.
Your memories, are they dash? He attempted to ask before a Senkaman opened up.
Through it came Soifan with a few of her patrol force, Urahara with Ninyu in tow, Rinji, Rukia, and Yukitake.
What's the news? He asked, almost knowing what was happening.
Rinji stepped forward and delivered the report. We're acting on a level 1 order from the Captain Commander.
Ichigo, you are relieved from active duty of protecting the Shinenju and are now to find and stop the Ryodoji clan from whatever it is they're planning.
Now hand over the girl.
He said sternly, almost threateningly in his tone, like he wasn't happy about it himself. Ninyu stepped forward to deliver her report. After an extensive scan of the Gotei 15, Kido Corps, on Mitsukido, as well as Shino Academy a total of 10 times, there has been no mention of any Shinigami named Senna or matching this girl's description. The artificial life explained robotically. The Zanpakuto, Mirokomaru, was the registered Zanpakuto of a Soul Reaper from a century ago that was sucked away by the restrictive current within the Dangai over a century ago.
All evidence points to the Shinigami, Senna, being the Shinenju. Senna gasped in shock and tried to protest their claims. That can't be, what you're saying isn't true.
She said, almost like she's trying to convince herself more than anything.
I am a Soul Reaper, I just know I am.
Suddenly Urahara was in front of her, his hand on her shoulder and making her flinch.
Tell me, he said in his most gentle tones, what do you remember about your life? When did you come to the world of the living?
She looked up at him hesitantly as he smiled down.
It's okay, we won't hurt you.
She took a breath to settle herself as she talked about what she did recall.
I remember walking by the banks of that river 2 days ago. I know my name is Senna.
She said confidently, a confidence that waned as she talked. When I was a little girl she grasped her head, almost as if remembering hurt.
Then I was alone. It's all right. Breath Senna. Urahara advised calmly.
Ichigo, this girl is in fact the Shinenju and she's in grave danger. He explained to his favored student.
Ganryu is using the blanks to draw the two worlds together to collide and mutually destroy each other.
If he gets his hands on her, then he'll be able to accelerate his plans threefold. We need to get her to safety as soon as possible. He said, knowing Ichigo's usual though process. But what gives you the right to dash? She attempted to ask before the captain cut her off again.
Yes, right now she has thoughts and feelings.
Urahara acknowledged before continuing with the practical argument. All of which don't matter in the slightest if Ganryu gets his hands on her. She's the cornerstone to his plans to destroy the two worlds. So understand if we don't give her a choice in this matter either. It's either treat her as a person or risk losing her to the enemy. Ichigo was conflicted. He understood the gravity of the situation, but he couldn't stand the thought of Senna being locked away, no matter the reasoning. It was then he remembered some crucial details. They were surrounded by blanks and their current enemies can appear out of thin air. Move! He yelled, expelling his soul as the Ryodoji clan members came falling out of the sky and the people around them turned into the white form of the blanks. Ah, damn it! He cursed, pulling out his blade. One of the falling opponents released several missile-like projectiles between the two groups, making them leap away from each other. Khan stayed near Senna, taking the protective role while his master prepared to fight. The first to come after him was Jai. Didn't learn from last time, did ya? A minor setback. Jai said with a grin as blanks flew towards his missing limb, slowly reforming it to its previous state. You won't beat me so dash, he said before Ichigo blew up both of his arms with the same technique as last time. Not impressed.
I can do the regrow limbs thing too, Ichigo said as the man glared at him. Difference is, I'm better at it.
He then kicked Jai across the face and through a couple of trees. He saw the other Soul Reapers fighting off either the Blanks or the exiled clan members. The strange weapons of the green-clad enemy kept the Soul Reapers surprised and distracted.
Not dealing with this crap. Limit 1, release.
Ichigo called out, breaking the first seal of his power. Everyone felt the increase in his strength as swarms of Blanks tried to attack him, only to be swept away with a single swing of his blade.
Unfortunately, a good number of them went after Senna as well.
Khan was able to fend them off easily with his enhanced reflexes and implanted martial arts skills, letting him dance through and strike down every Blank with ease, but got separated from Senna as well, who was going after the white-haired leader of the entire assault.
I am a Soul Reaper, she cried out in her mind. I'll prove it,
she thought as she exited her body and jumped to attack the man stood watching over the entire attack.
Bring them to the twilight,
she called out, following Ichigo's advice and not holding back.
Mirokumoru.
She charged valiantly, just as Ganryu turned and slammed his fist into her gut.
Thank you for coming to me,
he said with a cocky smile, looking at her like a thing rather than a person. It saves me the trouble of dealing with these Soul Reapers.
The fallen clan of Ryodoji.
Yukite growled, glaring at the man that sought nothing but destruction.
I know nothing of that,
he spoke, looking down on the assembled Shinigami that were still fighting of thousands of Blanks.
We are from the clan of darkness. The Dark Ones. That name is stupid,
Ichigo said, appearing behind them.
Now drop Senna,
he growled, flaring his Ryatsu. Just then, hundreds of Blanks flew at Ichigo and covered him in explosions. The ones on the ground began to follow suit, just as they were being attacked. A rain of light arrows and balls of fire struck down on them just as much as they exploded, a giant orange shield carrying the Soul Reapers to safety.
That tickled,
Ichigo said, sweeping away the cloud of smoke that surrounded him. The Dark Ones began to charge at Ichigo, who bypassed them all and appeared in front of Ganryu.
Raishur surrounding his blade as he prepared to destroy the man responsible for the attack, until he hesitated.
Memories of killing Jinjo and Tsukishima flashed in his head yet again. How easy it was, how little was left, what would happen to his friends? The second he saw Senna's scared face made him pause, and the Dark Ones took the chance, running him through with every blade in their disposal.
Ichigo! Senna cried out, just as she and Ganryu faded into the darkness and out of his reach.
Ichigo watched as she was taken, roaring in anger as he slashed in a full circle, seriously injuring each Dark One within reach of Zangetsu as they fled. Seconds later, Ichigo was fully healed and furious.
They took Senna because he was still dealing with his trauma.
The living world and soul society are at risk, and he failed to stop it.
He was not looking forward to this lecture from Genryusai. Soul Society. Captain's meeting. Completely unacceptable.
Yamamoto yelled at the young hybrid, every captain flanking down both sides, ending with Tessai standing opposite to the ancient commander.
Barely an hour passed after Senna was taken.
You had the chance, right in front of you, and you hesitated. If you had swung your blade, you could have ended this whole mess right then and there.
The Shinenju dash. Her name is Senna.
Ichigo grumbled, angry at the disregard for the girl's rights as a person.
That doesn't matter.
He roared at the boy, trying to convey the gravity of the matter.
The Dark Ones have her and can now accelerate their plans to destroy everything. Captain Commander, he's still just a boy.
Isshin spoke out in defense of his son, to which Toshiro coughed loudly.
He's 15, he's still not ready to kill as easily as the rest of us. Sentimentality will get you killed on the battlefield, Isshin. Urahara responded.
In this case, Ichigo failed his mission and put so much more at risk because of it.
Now drastic measures must be taken, Yamamoto said wearily. Urahara, what is the situation?
He said, consulting one of his smartest officers. Urahara straightened out and delivered his report. The original rate of expansion would have the Valley of Screams reach its critical point within 6 hours. He said, bringing up a three-dimensional map of the valley. However, with the Shinenju and proper placement, that rate increases to give us almost 2 hours.
If left alone, the collision between Soul Society and the living world would see the destruction of one, if not both worlds. The news left a heavy tone among everyone in the room.
Commander Tsukabashi, Tessai straightened out as the head captain called on him, "Prepare the Kido cannon."
Everyone in the room was split between agreeing and disagreeing with the plan.
Ichigo clenched his fists in anger, at himself, the Dark Ones, and his sensei for making this call.
"Lieutenant Kurosaki," Yamamoto said, making the hybrid look his aged teacher in his eyes.
"Make no mistake that your hesitation has forced my hand. However, I will not stop you from going to the valley and screams if you wish," he said, surprising everyone in attendance. "You will be by yourself, no member of the Gotii will join you. If you are still in there by the time we must fire the cannon, it will still be shot."
"Do I make myself clear?"
he said as Ichigo took in his teacher's words. "Save her if you wish, but don't expect this to stop."
Ichigo knew what he was going to do. "To you all, she's the Shinenju," Ichigo said, stealing his resolve. "To me, she's a member of Squad 15.
I will protect my squad members." He flicked his hand in the air, opening a cleanly made garganta, and charged through it.
"Master, are you sure about this?"
Yukite cried out in concern.
"Ichigo is still just a child." Yamamoto merely smiled.
"Jushiro, is your faith in your junior disciple truly so weak?" he asked, confusing the sickly man. "Ichigo's too stubborn to let one loss stop him,"
Urahara said, sharing the old man's confidence.
"Once he's set his mind on something, he'll do it no matter what barriers stand in his way.
Really, it's a question of which is more merciful, Ichigo or that cannon." Isshin continued.
"Still, now's a good time to test our latest project,"
Urahara said cheerfully. "May we?" Yamamoto nodded.
"They are not members of the Gotii after all."
Karakura Town.
Ichigo stood on the bridge, looking down on the entrance to the Valley of Screams.
Chad's patrol found it yesterday during their patrols but thought nothing of it at the time.
Now, Ichigo had his destination, his mission, and his determination.
This time, he would save Senna. "Are you sure about this, sir?" one of the squad members asked Yuryu. Letting the lieutenant go in alone. Ichigo tilted forward and fell into the shining portal. "He'll be fine,"
Yuryu said, just before they all heard the same thing.
Limits 1 and 2, release.
A crushing pressure appeared and faded in an instant as Ichigo crossed dimensions. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers.
Riruka's eyes.
"And now, time to remove the bandages," Urahara said as they began to unwrap the gauze from around the Fullbringer's head. After a week for her new eyes to settle in, they decided to witness the end result. Ichigo and the other Fullbringers were in attendance for the grand unveiling in the hospital room.
After a tense few seconds, they finally got the wrapping off and let Riruka slowly open her eyes. Everyone took in the sight of Riruka's electrified pink iris as they handed her a mirror. "Why, you actually did it,"
she stuttered, taking in her new eyes in confused elation.
Not sure if it's what she really wanted. "I like it," Ichigo stated. "Matches your hair."
She looked at the hybrid, and got her first real good look at him.
"What a hottie,"
she screamed in her head, while everyone gasped.
"Well, that failed," Urahara said.
"You specifically said, hearts.
These are stars."
He put the mirror in front of her, only to see star-shaped pupils before returning to normal. Now all she felt was dread.
"Oh well, time to try again,"
he said, picking up a scalpel.
"Keep him away from me." Ishida's memories.
Yuryu came home after a night of patrolling Karakura, dealing with weak hollows, helping instruct new recruits. It was just a rough week for him. He came home to a dark house and his parents asleep on the couch with the light from their television illuminating them. His father laying on his back with his mother snuggling up to him, finding warmth in her husband. Yuria smiled, happy to actually see this image when he and his father struggled for so long in training.
He walked over and pulled a blanket over the two, wishing them good night.
Then he saw what they were watching, his parents in bed, disheveled and bare.
So what should we name her?
His mother asked on screen, patting her stomach.
Decided on a girl, huh? His father responded, hugging her close. Yuria turned off the TV and pulled out the tape. It was labeled, Honeymoon. Must destroy. He growled. Must bleach brain. Chapter 38, The End of the Valley of Screams.
Valley of Screams.
Where am I? Senna thought to herself as she came to.
She found herself in a canyon lined with crevices on both rock faces that extended for miles. She was strapped to a pole with a red cloth ring binding her to it. Several floating purple orbs were orbiting around her and the poles. She heard movement ahead and saw the dark ones heading for her.
So what? I just hang here and wait while you mope about losing? Waiting for your stupid plan to ultimately fail?
She said defiantly against the guys that held her prisoner.
How dare you speak to Lord Ganryu in such a manner?
The man with the rocket pack growled at her, stopping when his master raised his hand.
Relax, Rihan, I've long since abandoned the need of formalities.
He told his loyal second in command.
And your bravado is charming, but futile.
With you here, our plan will succeed and our vengeance against the unjust laws of Soul Society will dash.
No one ca res. Senna interrupted, showing more disrespect for her captors. What good is your plan going to do? You want to destroy the living world and Soul Society? To what end? How do you ultimately benefit from this? It doesn't matter, because you're going to be stopped.
She took on a condescending and confident smirk.
My lieutenant will stop you. What makes you think Soul Society will send anyone out to save someone who doesn't exist? Ganryu demanded.
In case you haven't noticed, your lieutenant wasn't much of a threat to us. He boasted while snapping his fingers and beginning the ritual, making the blanks and their energy swarm around her. Soon she was wrapped in cloth made of rasher that coalesced around her and reformed into a strange altar.
The defiance in Senna's eyes never faded once.
Because he said so himself. She said with a smirk.
He never abandons his allies.
When she said that, a crushing pressure made itself known to everyone in attendance.
That's probably him.
She spoke, hiding her relief with casual calm.
Rian. Benin.
He called to his artillery and crossbow sniper.
Get up there and prepare to attack. Jai, Mu, Bao.
The dark-skinned, slender, and giant men stiffened at his call.
Defend the Shinenju at all costs. This close to victory, he refused to fail.
Until a single phrase froze the very blood in his veins.
Too slow.
They all heard as Ichigo was already in between them and Senna. Jai let anger override his reason as he immediately charged at the hybrid.
Ichigo raised a hand up. Ikatsu.
He whispered before throwing his fist forward. Jai's body collapsed around the fist buried in his gut, feeling his organs rupture and his bones turn to dust, before flying off from the force of the blow and crashing through layers of rock. The event took place instantaneously.
Looks like I still need work. He's still in one piece.
Ichigo said, giving himself to his more violent nature. He looked over the dark ones with cold black and glowing yellow eyes. For your crimes, and threat to life, you're all to die. The dark ones gaped at the strength and ferocity locked away behind those eyes. The club-wielding Bao charged at him with the intent to crush him with his mighty clubs, an effort of futility. Ichigo caught the club and weathered its shockwave before thrusting his palm into the man's gut.
Heido number 33, Sokatsui.
He said, unleashing the punishing pale fire at point-blank range and turning the man into ash.
Monster.
Mu gasped as two of his allies were struck down easily. Ichigo was in front of him in a heartbeat, his blade swirling with rasher as he brought it down.
Getsuga Tensho.
He whispered as he killed another of the dark ones. He looked up to see Senna and Ganryu, looking at him in fear as he hastened his progress. Senna was wrapped in a weird, viscous matter that was calcifying into a strange tree.
Ganryu suddenly smirked as Rian and Benin shot down at him. A barrage of missiles and bolts coming down on him.
Just as soon as they were fired, they were destroyed by two unlikely allies, showing up to aid the hybrid.
I thought wasn't getting backup,
he stated as the Foolbringers turned to him. The captain commander said that about the goatee eye. Jinjo said, hefting his claymore on his shoulder.
We're still not members.
Besides, we had time to kill.
Tsukishima responded. Let us have some fun and you do your mission, Kurosaki.
Ichigo nodded his acknowledgement as he shot toward Ganryu. Rian was firing more missiles at Ichigo, only for Jinjo to intercept them and wipe them out with an energy blade.
Think we'll get in trouble for this?
The more laid back of the two asked.
I was always more for giving orders, not following them. Jinjo responded. Besides, we already got what we came for.
The two looked up at their chosen opponents.
What's the harm in having a little fun?
He asked before they charged at the Dark Ones.
Tsukishima versus Benin.
The purple-haired Dark One blocked the white katana of Tsukishima before pushing off from the blade. She threw a few daggers before firing another bolt at him. Tsukishima swerved around the attack as he flew toward his opponent, disappearing from her view. He reappeared right in front of her and slashed her from shoulder to hip, his blade leaving a shallow cut as it phased through her body. He jumped back as she hesitantly felt her wound. I'm hurt that you've forgotten about me so soon, Benin.
Tsukishima said, addressing the Dark One as an old friend while his full bring took effect.
I said I would check the situation personally, but Lord Ganryu just didn't feel like waiting, did he? He knew her entire life after that cut. All of her memories were his knowledge, free for him to manipulate at his leisure.
Yeah,
she said hesitantly, unsure of her own memories before fully falling victim to his power.
Yeah, sorry. We had a window of opportunity and we took it. We didn't have long to take advantage of it. It's all right, but answer me one question, he said, trying to gather more information. Why did you all listen and trust Aizen? Jinjo versus Rian.
Rian kept up his barrage of missile strikes toward the Foolbringer, desperately trying to end him so he could try to stall the Soul Reaper from undoing their plans. Jinjo proved too fast and had a good counter to his missiles. It was either he dodged them in time or he destroyed them in a single swing of his energy-cloaked blade. But unlike his opponent, Rian had the limitless supply of blanks to power his attacks. He sent out the next barrage, while a few strafed around in the confusion to get him from behind. Jinjo swung his blade and was enveloped in the explosions.
Finally! Got him!
He cheered, before feeling himself get impaled from behind. He looked over his shoulder to see a lightly singed and ruffled Jinjo, with his blade shoved through Rian's chest.
That was honestly annoying,
Jinjo said, looking down at the Dark One as he desperately tried to summon blanks to heal himself.
But I doubt you have anything useful to tell me.
Jinjo flared his power, making his energy blade incinerate Rian.
So goodbye,
he yelled, before destroying the missile-shooting midget.
And meanwhile, you were playing with your enemy's head again. Weren't you?
He asked, looking to his side to find Tsukishima with his ever-present and cold smile. We already got what we wanted from that guy Ichigo punched, so why bother? I got her memories, but I wanted to know their feelings.
Tsukishima explained.
Their thirst for vengeance had long since consumed them. Easy prey for Aizen to use to his benefit. Just then, a massive torrent of black energy suddenly appeared and tore a hole in the dimensional space.
That wasn't necessary and probably dangerous.
The world began to shake as the tear grew.
Oh crap, run!
Jinjo yelled as they departed, leaving the rest to the hybrid.
With Ichigo,
Ganryu threw all of his abilities at the hybrid, all to stop him from crushing his mission of vengeance. Swarms of blanks, the calcifying slime that created this false tree they were in, thousands of daggers, none of which even slowed the hybrid down. Ganryu watched in fear of the boy, the monster, that Soul Society sent to kill him. He slashed through all the blanks with simple swings, let his Ryatsu tear through the gooey slime, and deflected the blades with his bare skin.
No!
he yelled, appearing in front of Ichigo. Refusing to hide in the shadows any longer.
My clan was unjustly banished by the Soul Society. I will have my dash. Just shut up.
Ichigo said with such intimidation that Ganryu froze. I don't give a damn about your clan's history and you deserve no sympathy, he said as he cut one of his fingers.
There is nothing to justify your actions to anyone.
He raised his finger up to Ganryu and charged a Siro, mixing it with his blood.
But I'm doing this to get my squad member back. Gran Rey Siro. He unleashed the dark torrent of power as it destroyed everything in its wake.
The last of the Dark Ones died instantaneously, frozen in the presence of a truly dark beast.
Oops. That was probably a bad idea.
Ichigo winced at the tears that began to form all around him. The sky, bleeding the restrictive current of the precipice world.
Gotta find Senna fast. Limit restore, he said, sealing his power back up and releasing a pesquisa. Found you, he said, flying down to the heart of the tree and prying open the path to Senna. Having trouble, rookie? Ichigo asked with a smile. Good to see you too, LT.
She said with a smile as she recalled the feelings and memories of the blanks, as well as her own happy memories. She was unsure of her past, but she knew that her memories with Ichigo were entirely her own.
Soul Society, Siriitii. We have reports. Lieutenant Kurosaki has recovered the Shinenju and caused devastating damage to the Valley of Screams.
One of the communications officers relayed to Yamamoto and the gathered captains. The old dragon smiled as he watched his student emerge from the dimension with Senna in his arms. He succeeded in his mission in less than half the time he was given. That boy's really something,
Kayarako said while Yukitake was gaping in shock.
Took care of the Dark Ones and began the process of destroying that dimension. He looked down to see Ishin boasting about his son, leading the cheer among the rest of the Gotii in attendance.
Definitely a future captain commander. In time, maybe. Yamamoto conceded.
He is still young and driven by his emotions before duty, but he'll grow and he'll learn. A leader must learn to listen to their heart as much as their head.
Something I remembered just recently,
he said, sharing a moment with his students.
Yes, a fine commander in time.
But that punch was too sloppy.
Back to the punching board for you, boy, he thought just before alarms began going off. Warning!
Several Ryatsu signatures are being detected, coming from the Valley of Screams. The man yelled, surprising everyone as the images changed to look into the dimensional pocket.
It was then that Yamamoto got the final confirmation of the Vandenreika's return. An entire battalion bearing Yhwach's banner.
World of the living.
Hey Senna, we made it.
Ichigo and Senna burst free from the dimensional pocket, greeted by his entire squad cheering at his victory and the smiling faces of his friends, and Jinjo and Tsukishima.
What the heck were you two doing there anyway? He asked the Foolbringers as they joined their squad on the bridge.
The two former enemies smiled at the hybrid with the same smugness they once had. Senna went to talk to Ichigo's other friends.
Serving probation, Jinjo explained, pointing at a seal on his neck. Considering what we did, or almost attempted, we are currently on probation. We do anything out of line, we're dead.
So for now, we do the field intel gathering,
Tsukishima said, holding up his bookmark.
My Fullbring, Book of the End can cut through anything, or lets me control someone's memories after I cut them.
As a bonus, I get a comprehensive knowledge of those I cut.
It was suspected the Dark Ones were influenced by Aizen and we were sent to find out. Thanks for punching that one guy, Jinjo said, made the job short.
So what did you find out? Ichigo asked. Aizen met with Ganryu and the Dark Ones, Tsukishima relayed.
He told them that he sympathized with their plight and the injustice of Soul Society and that now was the best chance they had to strike. They were so desperate to get their vengeance, they were ready to throw their lives away for this insane plan.
That's all I got from them. Ichigo pondered on the information. What was Aizen's goal in doing this? Testing out their strengths and current defenses? These thoughts were cut short when Yuria cried out. Ichigo! Behind you!
He said, making Ichigo turn as several tendrils pierced through his major joints and wrapped around him. He saw a figure with a white helmet, a white cloak covering its body and single glowing eye. The thing suddenly began to retract its limbs, pulling Ichigo towards it and back into the collapsing dimension.
Target locked, recovering Ichigo Kurosaki. It spoke robotically. Get over here! It yelled as Ichigo began to struggle against it. Chad was quick to respond, transforming his arms and firing a blast at the unidentified Quincy. It swerved to dodge and Chad grabbed onto the tentacles that were pulling Ichigo into the rift. Don't just stand there! Yuria yelled as Tatsuki began raining down fire on the strange bot while Oraheim deployed her shield at the same time the thing pulled out a large minigun. Help your lieutenant! Yuria pulled out his Quincy bow and began firing thousands of glowing blue arrows. The rest of the squad sprung into action, either pulling Ichigo back or firing Kido spells at the Quincy bot. It so far had proven too fast and too durable to let go of the hybrid, who was trying to make sure his limbs didn't tear off. He could grow them back, but it still hurt and he didn't want to risk it with any member of the Vandenrake. Jinjo and Tsukishima tried attacking it from behind, but it reacted so fast that it managed to shoot holes in their chests, forcing them to retreat and Oraheim to multitask. Guys! Jinjo coughed out with some blood. He's not alone. More are coming. He took a quick glance back into the Valley of Screams and saw more white-clad figures coming to the dimensional portal. They were having trouble with this one thing, how could they fight off more? Senna looked portal and remembered that she was the only one that could close it, but at a cost. Cover me! She called out, getting overhead and in the center of the portal. Yuria jumped next to her and saw a battalion of Quincy soldats coming toward them, getting their bows ready. Yuria responded in kind and began shooting at every arrow they fired. Senna! Ichigo growled out, pulled against his binds while his squad either fired Kido spells, pulled with Chad, or tried to hack away the mechanical tentacles. What are you doing? She began to glow as the world seemed to change. I'm closing the portal, she said, calmly, almost resigned. Returning the memories to the blanks. What? He asked, disbelieving that she was doing what he thought she was doing. Limit 1 release. He called out, breaking his first seal again. Senna, stop this. You can't dash. Yes, I can. She yelled out. You said it yourself, Squad 15 looks after its own. She looked at him with sad eyes. You've done so much for me, it's time I returned the favor. A whirlwind enveloped her as she flashed him one last bright smile. It's the least I can do. Senna, no! He roared, jumping toward the robot that was pulling his. Ikatsu! He roared as he punched the android, breaking a hole through it and shattering his hand in the process, but he was freed from his binds. He turned and pushed himself toward Senna, just as the wind exploded. Senna, ah! He cried out as light enveloped the world. Ichigo, can you do me one last favor? He heard her voice through the haze of light. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers. BG9's attack. You think everything will be fine? Basby asked his fellow Sternritters as they came into the world of the living. He's just supposed to hint at the Vandenrake's actions. He'll be fine. Bambietta dismissed simply. He wouldn't do anything to jeopardize the mission, she said, just as they saw Ichigo and his squad struggling with the android in question. Or he could screw it up. He follows orders to the letter. Basby yelled out. What the hell? Just then, radio static came from Bambietta's person. Sternritter E. I have captured Ichigo and am now returning him for your personal pleasure as instructed. The message from the android cut as both Basby and Candace turned to glare at the blushing brunette. Candace was about to say when the exact same message played, but for her. Sternritter T. I have captured Ichigo and am now returning him for your personal pleasure as instructed. Now she was gaping in surprise and blushing mad. Can I have a go before you try to kill him? Candace asked. How dare you? Bambietta demanded. Killing a stud like him would be criminal. Let's take turns,
she said, getting her fellow's agreement.
Basby just hung his head in defeat. Why did it have to be you two?
He asked, just before the bridge exploded.
Chapter 39, Memories of Senna. Karakura Town, Riverside Beach.
Hours passed after Ichigo's assault on the Valley of Screams. The blanks disappeared without a trace, the dark ones were dead, and for now, everything is peaceful again.
On the surface, that is. Yamamoto ordered Soifan and her stealth force to investigate the area and recover anything they found.
Squad 15 was taking the time to focus on improving their skills after the sneak attack on their lieutenant and their near uselessness against the perpetrator.
A solitary android with Quincy abilities.
That's what Soifan was currently looking at with a strange sense of dread.
Ichigo did a number on this thing,
she muttered, trying to remind herself that it was out. Being torn in half by the closing portal and missing half of its head from Ichigo's punch, but she couldn't stop the strange sense of fear she thought she had long abandoned.
All right people, wrap this up,
she ordered as her team finished salvaging everything they could find after combing the riverside 3 times.
Urahara and his spooks want to fiddle with this thing as soon as possible. And the sooner I get away from it the better, she thought before looking to the other bank of the river, feeling the Ryatsu of Squad 15's lieutenant. Graveyard.
She wanted confirmation, wanted to know for a fact whether she existed or not, whether she would be remembered or not, whether Ichigo would remember her or not. She had a fragmented memory that was slowly disappearing more and more as she felt her life fade. She wanted to see what she thought was her family's grave, see whether she really lived or not. As long as someone remembered, as long as Ichigo remembered her, that would be enough for her. He carried her to the graveyard as her inconsistent memories played in her mind.
Just down this road, she said weakly, losing her remaining life energy by the second. Fourth from the end. He went to the grave in question. Is it there? Is there a name?
She asked, her voice cracking as her vision left her. She felt him tense as he looked at her supposed gravestone, the grave that had no mention of Senna.
It's there. Clear as day.
He lied, his voice sounding relieved, but his body gave it away to her.
You had a life, a family,
he said, standing back up as she let out a whimper.
Thank you, Ichigo,
she said, crying with what little strength she had.
Thank you for everything.
She felt her body grow warm as she began to fade from existence.
Thank you, Ichigo.
She tried to muster the strength to kiss him goodbye, one last thing to do while she lived. But her lips never reached his cheek, her body faded from existence.
I love you,
she thought one last time, her thoughts reaching his mind as she disappeared. He let his arms drop and his head hang in shame, feeling the crushing weight of defeat yet again. Only this time, at the cost of someone he swore to protect. He wallowed in his guilt as Urahara appeared behind him, catching a falling amber ball from behind Ichigo. He watched the hybrid drop to his knees, mourning the loss of the girl. He slowly pulled out the girl's ribbon he recovered on his way there and placed a comforting hand on his student's shoulder. I'm sorry, Ichigo, he said as gently as he could, there was nothing you could do in the end. The Shinenju was a paradoxical existence that forms and disappears no matter what. Returning the lost souls on the path of transmigration after returning their memories. He felt the hybrid shake more as tears came out of his eyes.
I know it hurts,
he said, speaking from experience. All of this amazing power at your fingertips only to remember that there are things even you can't stop. Ichigo slowly reached out to Senna's ribbon and took it from his mentor. Normally, everything about the blanks in Senna will fade from everyone's memories. Your father decided to have her registered as a soul reaper and made it a point to memorialize her sacrifice. Ichigo slowly stood up, letting his will to overcome guide his hand once more.
Which will ultimately make it easier when we finally bring her back,
he said jovially, making Ichigo look at him in shock.
You can do that?
He asked, hopeful at the idea of Senna's resurrection. Ichigo, the moment we even suspected Senna of being the Shinenju, I started working on something to bring her back. He explained, holding up the small Jiken. Just before the Dark Ones attacked, I put this inside of her. It recorded every memory from when she first appeared to the instant her Shinenju self faded. He pocketed the small ball and opened the Sinkaman. There's nothing we could have done to stop her from dying as the Shinenju, but there is a way to bring her back. Mayuri and I are devoting a good portion of our efforts to doing so. He turned to face the shining portal. Yama wants you to report back soon, Ichigo, so settle your business, he said as he started walking toward the path to Soul Society. Now, Sena Shiba or Sena Kurosaki? He idly wondered as he crossed dimensions. Las Noches, monitor room. Aizen watched the various screens placed around Karakura town, the city he needed for his ambition. Over his many years of research into the Oken, he discovered two things were needed to make 100,000 souls and a land rich in spiritual power. That land was Karakura town, and it had plenty of souls for him to craft his key into the king's realm. Only now he still had problems to deal with, his incomplete Hogyoku and Ichigo Kurosaki. He created his forces, but production was slowing to a crawl, and he probably needed to craft an Arrancar solely to oppose Ichigo. Ever since he revealed himself to Soul Society, his growth skyrocketed explosively, and Aizen himself wasn't sure how strong he was, or any of his friends for that matter. At least that's one nuisance out of the way, he muttered, watching the valley of screams fade into nothingness. He managed to send the foolish Dark Ones to their deaths, but didn't get a full glimpse into Ichigo's current ability. He was only sure that he had multiple seals on him. Maybe I'll send some of the rejects to test his allies, and maybe a certain cat for him as well? He pondered, already thinking of sending one of his most loyal and a brash thug giant. Karakura town, Stern Ritter house. Basby and his two female colleagues made their way to an out-of-the-way house, not too close or far from their targets, and began to set up for the long run. They had access to a great deal of wealth thanks to noble roots and various actions some of the more expendable Quincy were taking to fund the Dark Empire, so money wouldn't be an issue. Next, they had to enroll in the school and try to keep their Quincy heritage a secret. A plan they are sure will ultimately fail the moment they encounter Ichigo and Yuryu. His Majesty warned them that Ichigo is a war potential for good reason and has caught the attention of the only man he ever feared. So, we're going to be attending his school soon. Right? Asked Bambietta, wearing a similar outfit to her uniform but more casual like her fellow Sternritters, switching the cap for a black beret and the cloak for a denim jacket. Does that mean we have to wear those uniforms? I hope not. Candace vehemently rejected, wearing a green tube top and denim short shorts. I have legs the world needs to see. I don't do lunges for nothing. Yeah, Basby said while looking at her well-endowed chest, it's your legs the world wants to see. He wore red and black punk attire. Can we just focus on our mission instead of your looks? Can't we use our sex appeal to entice them? They asked simultaneously. When is it ever that easy? He responded, rubbing his brow in frustration. Our mission is to bring them to our side, already difficult because of their misguided anger to His Majesty, and BG9 has already made it harder because of his attack. We have to be careful in our approach. He told them, actually focusing on his mission. Unfortunately, I understand their anger all too well. He thought, remembering how Yawatch destroyed his home long ago. How will this play out in the end? He wondered, thinking back to the display of camaraderie the two Quincy had with the Soul Reapers. Maybe there's another way. Flashback, Valley of Screams. He was cold, feeling himself slowly dying. Felt his lifeblood seep from his body as his insides were turned to paste. He couldn't even muster up the smallest command over the blanks to heal his wounds. He couldn't die here, he refused to die here, not until he got his payback on the little bastard that kept blowing off his arms. With sheer determination, Jai attempted to raise himself to return to the battle. Unfortunately, that was not meant to be for him. Well. He heard a smooth dark voice say. Ichigo did a number on this guy. A little frightening to see how much stronger he really is when he's not holding back. Another voice said, almost disarming in its calm tone. But that makes this job almost too easy. He said as Jai saw the vague figures of two people standing over him. Who the hell are you? Jai asked, coughing up blood from his broken insides, feeling more of his life fade.
"We're the new Black Op interrogators for Soul Society," the larger figure said. "And you're going to give us everything you know about what we want."
Jai let out a bloodied cackle.
"I'll never tell you anything," he defied. "I'm already dead." "Oh, your compliance isn't an issue,"
the thinner figure said as he raised his blade and stabbed through Jai's chest.
Flashback end, Soul Society. From what I saw, Aizen met up with them and persuaded them that now was the time to act. Tsukishima told Yamamoto, delivering his report to the ancient captain. The Dark Ones were all too willing to take the chance, hearing that the Gotei 13 was severely weakened and the Shinenju was going to appear. They never suspected that the information was outdated. Yamamoto stroked his beard in thought.
Aizen seems to be either testing our current strength, or just biding time until his forces are ready, he said as he rose from his desk, sensing Ichigo's arrival.
Continue to train yourself in stealth and speed. We don't know when and if Aizen will launch another attack.
He got out a traditional calligraphy set as the Foolbringers left the old leader, just as Ichigo came in.
Sensei.
Ichigo bowed respectfully of his head teacher.
That punch was still sloppy, Ichigo, he interrupted, handing his student the set.
The second one was just barely better, but I saw the damage you did to yourself.
Your control is still wild and your enemies will take advantage of that. Yes, sensei.
Ichigo conceded, taking the sumi, ink stick, and grinding it on the Suzuri, ink stone, after pouring water on the grinding surface, creating the ink for the focus exercise his master wanted. I hope this experience was enlightening for you, Ichigo, he said, watching as his student slowly engrossed himself on the slow process of grinding the ink for his calligraphy. One must put the greater good above their morals.
You managed to win out because you were stronger than all of your opponents this time. But if a few must be lost to save a majority, that act must be taken. A moment of hesitation can spell disaster that could cause irreparable damage, he told his student as he continued grinding the ink. Now, when you are ready, write the kanji for your blade's name, Yama instructed as he began to brew tea for himself and his student. Squad 12 Research Labs, restricted level. Urahara lowered himself in the hidden elevator, going down into the private area of the Research and Development Labs, where only few minds were privy to the personal experiments that only the heads of the labs were conducting on their own. He came to a room illuminated by the glow of monitors and various glowing fluids of ongoing experiments. It used to be that only one person was allowed in here, the president of the R&D department that led Squad 12. Now, Urahara was here with only one other person. How is she coming along, Mayuri? He asked, walking up to a large glowing blue tube that held the nude blank form of a developing soul body in liquefied ratio. Normal physical jigai were child's play for the two. This was near complete resurrection they were attempting. The process should be no different from my creation of Ninyu, Mayuri stated from a different area of the room, dissecting and tinkering with the robotic body that Soifan and her team recovered earlier that day. Then, I was working from scratch. Now, we have a blueprint in mind. Just dispense the girl's memories and soul into the slot, he instructed, further disarming the broken android. Urahara took Senna's Jiken and placed it into the sphere recess that receded into the machine, changing the color to amber as the ball dissolved and mixed with the liquefied energy. You know something odd, Mayuri? The eccentric man asked his subordinate. When we looked up Mirokomaru, it said that it could only utilize electricity. She manipulated wind and air currents. Is there something we're missing? One thing at a time, Kasuk. Mayuri responded, the clunk of heavy machinery sounding the end of his disassembling of the robotic Quincy. Now let's see what makes this tick. Yeah, the shop owner thought as he looked to a small jar that once held a previous experiment, one thing at a time. Central Underground Prison, Muken. Ichigo finished his calligraphy exercise, drawing out the kanji for his blade in calm focused strokes. Yamamoto said nothing as he examined Ichigo's final result before sending him back into the lowest level of the underground prison, where Yachiru waited for him.
Fear and nervousness crept along his nerves as he remembered her brutal lessons and how he was left in a pool of his own blood in the end, but now he moved in spite of that trauma. The elevator opened to reveal the lone figure of Yuichiro Unohana that awaited him.
"Barely a week since we were last here,"
she said, her cold voice echoing in the endless dark abyss. Ichigo strode out to meet his challenge.
"Are you a warrior?
Or still a child?" she asked as Ichigo stood across from her. Just as he was about to answer, she immediately made to cut his throat, only to be stopped by his blade as he blocked her. She looked into his eyes, seeing a familiar resolve reflected in them once again. She smiled in twisted delight before jumping back.
"Good. Now let us begin."
Soul Society, 2 days later. Unohana released Ichigo, feeling confident in his progress as a swordsman, back into the careful tutelage of Genryusi. Ichigo was going over the katas of the advanced Hakuta that spawned the punches Yamamoto drilled into the boy's head, repeating moves thousands of times until his motions became flawless. Ichigo further displayed his potential to the aged captain as he changed over the past few days, becoming more focused and confident in his actions and performance, showing his potential as Yamamoto's eventual successor. Or rather, Kairaku's. He thought grimly, looking at the old painting of the ancient monster that he was in the early days. He moved to lighter thoughts as he continued the mountain of paperwork that existed on his desk, coming across one that filled him with mild dread and great annoyance. Only they could take a happy occasion and make it seem terrible.
He moaned, seeing the final registration forms for the wedding between Unohana and Zaraki.
Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers.
Team Up of Vengeance.
Ichigo made his way through the halls of the 2nd Division looking for a certain someone.
"You know, I'd prefer if there was an appointment made to meet Lieutenant Kurosaki,"
Soifan said, suddenly appearing behind Ichigo, making him jump slightly.
"What do you want?" "Well, remember when I first brought back the previous captains and Urahara said a few choice words that made you kick him in the face?"
Ichigo asked, making the petite captain raise an eyebrow before gesturing for him to continue.
"Wanna help me get a few years' worth of payback?"
he asked with a mischievous smile, making the hornet's eyes widen before gaining a similar smirk.
"We are going to get along splendidly," she said, already thinking about the coming storm. SWA changing of the guard.
Now that things have settled down, I call this meeting of the Shinigami Women's Association.
Nanao said to the assembled notable females of the Soul Society, including Orihime and Tatsuki.
First on the agenda is the welcoming of new members, First Lieutenant of Squad 9, Mashiro, and 5th and 6th seats of Squad 15, Tatsuki Arisawa and Orihime Inoue. She announced, causing a small round of applause from the assembled women.
Next, with the retirement of Club President, Lieutenant Kusajishi, the title of President falls to the Vice President,
she said with a smirk on her face.
"Me. I now lead the Shinigami Women's Association. Now we can finally make some actual headway in this club." Unohana then decided to rain on the poor girls' parade.
"Then good luck with the severely slashed budget we just got," she said with a smile, making Nanao freeze and lose all color.
What are you talking about, Captain?"
she stuttered, as every other member turned to the serene captain with shock. The abuse of funds and budget coupled with the lack of action from the SWA during Little Yuichiro's run as president has shown a lack of competency among the group, and repeated disregard of private property threatens to eliminate funding entirely, seeing as you've constantly invaded the Kuchiki estate without the head of the family's permission to use his home as a meeting ground for the association. That and your gross abuse as head of the budgetary committee was brought to Yamamoto's attention that the contributions the club has made are disproportionate to the usual budget, most of which is being allocated to the men's association in response. Also, you've been fired from the position of head of the budgetary committee, Unohana said with a smile as every other member could only look on in shock.
"How did this happen?"
Nanao cried, seeing her chance practically crumble around her. "Because of the actions of the new financial officer of the Shinigami Men's Association, 3rd seat Yuryu Ishida," she answered as everyone gawked at the idea that someone competent was leading the men now. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding to prepare for."
Chapter 40, Union of War Gods.
Living World, Soken's Grave. Yuryu and Ichigo made their way to the final resting place of their teacher and grandfather. It's been half a month since they finally went to Soul Society, half a month since Aizen's treachery was revealed, half a month since Yuryu found his grandfather's killer, half a month since Soken's dream and the dream of many Quincy in his time was finally realized. The third seat of the Living World squad was a Quincy, recognized as a valuable ally to the Shinigami. After centuries of bitterness and struggle between the two sides, the dream was finally realized. The dream that the last Elder Quincy would never get to see. He was gone, killed in soul by Mayuri Karatsuchi, drained by Yawatch, and lost forever. This grave was nothing but a reminder of the man he was. A kind, loving grandfather and teacher to the two Quincy to change so much. Buried with him was his Quincy cross and shroud. "Hello, grandfather," Yuryu said, kneeling down before the grave and giving a prayer. "Sorry it took so long to get back here, things took a while to settle down." Yuryu slowly recounted the tales of the duo's ventures and accomplishments, some filled with laughter, others filled with tears. "I found the one responsible for your death," he said on a somber note. "I almost threw away everything I had, simply to kill him. But I didn't give in to my hate, you wouldn't have wanted to see that," he said, feeling tears well up in his eyes. Ichigo placed a comforting hand on his cousin's shoulder. Yuryu took a breath to steady himself and continue. "Now, I'm a member of the court guard squads, serving in the living world. We finally realized the dream, grandfather," he said, letting the tears come out. "You should be here to see it." Ichigo wrapped a comforting arm around the crying Quincy, sharing the pain in missing their long-lost teacher and grandfather. Dawn became noon as the two paid their respects to the fallen elder. "Come on, Yuryu," Ichigo said, pulling himself up. "We can't relax yet," he said grimly, not looking forward to the disaster coming ever closer. "You're still not done with your project." Yuryu joined him with a look of determination, as if heading into battle. "You're right," he said, steeling himself for the coming storm. "I still have to apply the finishing touches to Captain Anohana's wedding kimono." He tensed his arms in preparation. "Which wouldn't be a problem if you didn't literally start from scratch," Ichigo said, opening up a garganta for the two. "How did you even make that much progress in just half a week?" he asked, only to hear Yuryu's cocky chuckle. "How, you ask?" he said with a smirk. "With careful use of Reizo Tengai and pure speed and skill," he yelled triumphantly while Ichigo stared at Yuryu. "Mayuri gave you a drug, didn't he?" Ichigo asked bluntly. It was hard to say no. Yuryu responded, not even changing his demeanor. "How could you not say no?" the hybrid asked as Yuryu blushed. "Forget it, just indulge in your hobby. It relaxes me." "Okay?" The Quincy defended as they made their way for Soul Society, already preparing for the special day of the first and the latest Kenpachi's union in equal parts cheer and dread. "I do my own relaxing, but I've had no time to spend with Oraheim or Tatsuki," Ichigo grumbled. "And Ranjiku would only make it worse." Yuryu was confused for a second before catching on. "And to think you were a prude," he said, prompting Ichigo to punch him really hard. Squad 11 Barracks. Ichigo will be standing at the ready with the ring. "We'll say our vows, Tessai will announce us as wed, then we'll kiss to make it official," Unohana explained to her betrothed, for the 100th time because he never paid attention. "And no, you are not to fight Ichigo at any point until at least a month after our marriage," she scolded as the berserker finally tore his vision away from his bald lieutenant helping to train his squad. "Yes, it's been a while, but we want Soul Society in one piece for our wedding." "A wedding you proposed, Zaraki?" "Yeah, I understand," he mumbled. "Not exactly happy, but I understand. Speaking of marriage, am I taking your name or the other way around?" She opened her mouth to answer when the barack doors suddenly slammed open. "Took you long enough? You ready?" he asked as all eyes turned to the only Kido user in the squad. "I apologize that I've kept you waiting, sir," Yumichika said smoothly as he made his way through the assembled members of his squad. He moved with a grace that was associated with him as he kept his pride in moving beautifully.
And Captain Unohana, glad to see you here as well.
He got in front of the two most notable swordsmen in Soul Society as he knelt before them. I'm ready to take my place as your third seat captain, he said with confidence.
Kenpachi merely grunted.
I remember saying that you had to earn that place, Yumachika,
he said, standing up and towering above everyone in the room. Listen up. Third seat is officially up for grabs. Anyone wants it, head outside and fight Yumichika,
he announced, making a good number of his squad cheer, some saying that Kido was for the weak. Yumachika didn't deserve it for lying about his skills. Those familiar with Yumachika's skill wisely sat out while Ikaku went out to watch his friend's real skill, followed by both Kenpachis. Thus, Yumachika stood in the courtyard of his squad's barracks to face his opponents for third seat.
I'm not sure about the captain's claim about you being one of his best, a nameless challenger boasted. It's the squad's creed that we're melee fighters. We face our opponents head-on and strive to our physical limits. We ain't gonna acknowledge a Kido specialist until he earns it. Right? The man shouted.
Yumichika raised an eyebrow before pointing behind his challenger. The lone warrior saw the rest of the squad cheering for Yumichika to take back his spot.
Kenpachi looked annoyed while Unohana merely found it amusing. I'm not sure whether to be pissed or not,
Zaraki said as the lone nameless idiot in his squad slowly tried to back out of the ring.
Begin!
He shouted, prompting Yumachika to appear next to the poor schmuck and backhand punch him into a wall.
Are you as disappointed as I am? He asked his wife to be. I find it rather touching. Unohana giggled.
Your squad is much closer than when I led the 11th, she said before a though occurred to her.
That reminds me. I never taught these brutes manners now, did I?
A dark, cold atmosphere covered the area as Yachira showed her face.
You think you're forgiven for the treatment you gave my medics? The people you trust your lives to, I might add? With the exception of Kenpachi, Ikaku, and Yumachika, the entire squad faced the wrath of the first Kenpachi. Wow!
Ikaku muttered as he watched the motherly captain break and mend bones in an instant.
Beautifully frightening. Yumichika whimpered. Damn it, that's hot. Kenpachi grinned, watching his predecessor work. His loyal second and third backed away slowly. Squad 1 training grounds.
Ichigo continued his training under Yamamoto's tutelage, waiting for the wedding and in preparation of the next conflict to come. He couldn't describe it beyond instinct, but he felt Aizen would be making his move soon. Yamamoto had Ichigo practice sword swings, determined to bring him to his full potential, while filling out some final bits of paperwork. Mainly allowing for the rest of the civilians in Siriidii to finish evacuating because they all feared what was to come for the honeymoon between the Kenpachis. Currently, Ichigo had bracelet weights attached to his wrists while his swings created noticeable air ripples on the ground. This was interrupted by the arrival of the youngest of the current captains,
Captain Hitsugaya.
Yamamoto greeted as the white-haired youth made his way to the commander and his student.
Any visit is always welcomed, but what brings you here? He asked, recognizing the focused look in the youth's eyes.
He was here for a fight.
Hello, head captain.
Toshiro bowed respectfully to the leader of Soul Society.
I'm actually here to request a sparring match with Lieutenant Kurosaki.
This caught the hybrid by surprise as he lost his grip on the practice blade he was using, which went flying off to wherever.
Can I ask why?
Ichigo questioned, taking the weights off and setting them carefully on the ground.
This is kind of out of nowhere.
The ice captain closed his eyes and reflected on his thoughts.
When Aizen betrayed Soul Society, he singled you out, Kurosaki. Toshiro started, remembering the bleak day when his world was torn. He considers you to be the biggest threat against him.
I wish to test myself against that, he said, keeping that cold resolve in his eyes. Ichigo, on the other hand, was ambivalent. He heard good things from his father about Toshiro, mainly about being a calm and focused leader and considered a child prodigy by most of his peers with the strongest ice-type Zanpakuto, but made it clear that he and Ichigo were in separate classes.
Very well. I'll allow it," Yamamoto said, making the youths turn toward him. "The more varied your opponents, the more experience you'll gain and adapt. Ichigo and Hitsugaya could use the motivation. The two of you represent a new generation of Soul Society and it would be good for you two to fight."
Ichigo nodded to his teacher while Toshiro bowed in respect.
"Thank you, sir."
He turned back to Ichigo.
"I look forward to this,"
he said as the two went to opposite ends of the training grounds. Toshiro unsheathed his blade, a katana longer than he was tall with a four-pointed star, while Ichigo just stood there. Genryosai started the match, surprising Toshiro because he thought the hybrid wasn't ready. That moment of hesitation was short as he charged at Ichigo with the intent to slash him from overhead. An attack that was stopped cold when Ichigo caught the blade with his bare hand, his he arrow protecting his body from injury.
What the dash!
He thought as Ichigo lifted him into the air and punched him in the gut, sending him flying back to the opposite side with a crash. This is what separated the two youths. Toshiro was considered a prodigy but has halted much of his training due to the managerial requirements of being a captain with near-endless paperwork. Ichigo was training to fight one of the few beings to rival the head captain. Toshiro was considered gifted and let himself slow down. Ichigo refused to stop at gifted.
"If you wanted to spar with me, then go at it seriously,"
Ichigo said as he stepped in front of the ice wielder, trying to slam his fist down again. Hitsugaya dodged to the side and tried to swipe at Ichigo's side, only for him to pull himself to the side with the hand he embedded into the ground. He threw his foot out at Toshiro, who jumped back and called out to his Zanpakuto.
"Reign over the frosted heavens, Hyarenmaru!"
He yelled out, creating a length of chain from his hilt, ending in a crescent-shaped blade, and bringing out a Chinese dragon made of ice. He sent down a number of ever-changing ice dragons, remembering how their last bout went. Ichigo's response was to create a single katana blade and swing a Getsuga Tensho blast, destroying each of the dragons as he shot himself towards the young captain. The moment he was in front of the ice wielder, he swung his blade down and sent Toshiro to the earth like a cannon shot. "Bankai! Daiguren Hyarenmaru!" He yelled out, letting the ice cloak his form and granting him wings and a tail while ice covered his limbs in icy claws. 3 sets of 4 purple ice petals floating behind him. "Well, that escalated," Ichigo said as Toshiro's Ryatsu strengthened. "Zangetsu," he said, changing the blade in his hands but began to compress his power around himself. His katana grew in length and turned as black as night. "Closest thing I have to a Bankai myself." He flashed in front of Toshiro again and slammed their blades against each other, with the young captain visibly struggling. They continued the exchange of blades, sparks, and bits of ice flying as their blades collide in a flash of movement. Nothing escaped Genryosai's gaze as he carefully watched the two fight. Ichigo's continued growth is impressive. He thought as his student destroyed another ice dragon. The other seal on his body continues to weaken him until he can fully master his Ryatsu, which can only happen when we find his peak. He's almost half my prime by now. His focus shifted to Hitsugaya as his petals faded. "And you, Captain Hitsugaya, hopefully this makes you aware. You cannot rely on your Bankai to win every fight. You must return to the basics, improve your Kido and swordsmanship." Toshiro used his chance to get Ichigo caught in a pincer attack between more dragons, 5 in front and 1 behind. Ichigo summoned up his spirit bow and fired 5 massive bolts to destroy the attack in front, and threw a perfect Ikatsu at the one behind him, shattering the entire beast. It was then that several giant ice pillars surrounded him. "It takes a while to do this," Hitsugaya explained as another petal faded, leaving him with 1. "I made sure to distract you with my dragons and used their ice to mold this technique. This fight is mine." He twisted his sword, making them all shoot toward Ichigo. The hybrid watched as the ice came at him, while his pinky finger turned black and began to crack. The ice encased him just as he called out the spell. "Heido number 96, Edo Queso," he whispered, creating a form of a katana out of concentrated crimson flame. Instantly turning the ice to steam and create a heated shockwave that shook a good portion of Siriidii. Hitsugaya stared in shock as Ichigo shunpoed in front of him and took a fierce punch to his gut, dispelling his Bankai and knocking him out. "And that's my win," he said as he brought the two of them down, his finger regenerating from using that spell.
Sorry about the mess, sensei,
he told Yamamoto as he dropped off the young captain.
It's no matter, Ichigo.
This should show the boy that he cannot rely on his Bankai for everything, he said, looking down at the young captain. He earned his position, but still such a child.
That shall be rectified. Ichigo bowed and took his leave, needing to get ready for Zaraki's wedding.
On his way he found his lost practice sword, with several Shinigami struggling to move it from the crater it was in. Sorry, he said as he went over to the blade and lifted it effortlessly, lost my grip on that.
Anyone hurt?
He asked as the assorted Soul Reapers slowly shook their heads.
Good,
he said with a smile as he walked off, preparing for the wedding of the match made in hell.
Kenpachi's wedding reception.
Chaos. That was the word used to describe what happened. For the most part everything went fine in the ceremony, everyone was in place, Kenpachi's squad was behaving, his kimono was still in one piece, nothing was on fire. Yamamoto walked Unohana down the aisle along with some of her older colleagues, Tessai led the ceremony, the two Kenpachis exchanged seiken rings and were officially wed, Zaraki taking his wife's name since he never had one.
Unohana threw the bouquet which was caught by Rukia.
Though by the smirk on a certain cat that was intentional, since Ichigo's and her wedding was next. All in all, a civil affair, then everyone started drinking.
Ranjaku, somehow, talked Tatsuki and Rukia into drinking with her.
Kayaraku accidentally switched his non-alcoholic beverages he brought with the alcoholic ones and Chad learned he has a low tolerance. Nimue was last seen dragging an unconscious Yuryu away. Ishin was sharing a few drinks with his side of the family who were in talks with the Kuchiki elders. Yumachika was roped into stylizing some of the SWA's hair while Ichigo was nursing a black eye from a fistfight with most of the 11th that was for fun. At some point, no one is sure how, the bathroom caught fire. Oraheim got the short straw and had to stay in the living world while the other leading members of the 15th went to the wedding. She was the winner in this matter.
I'm starting to question my own sanity, Kenpachi Zaraki Unohana said to his new wife. Because I should never be one of the more sane and well-behaved people at a party.
Retsa let out a giggle as Hisagi made a poor drunk choice of words that earned him a punch to the face.
Ichigo never got that memo about jokes regarding Matsumoto's boobs.
Just wait till later, dear. She said, letting her Yachiro's side come out. We'll have our fun then. Zaraki grinned in anticipation while Ichigo's ladies dogpiled on him. His cries for help went ignored. World of the living.
Everything seems alright, just making final repairs after the blanks incident. Hiyori told Oraheim over her soul tracker.
Didn't think interference like that would crash practically all our systems. It was the middle of the night and Oraheim joined the squads on patrol. Division 15 was the de facto front lines for Soul Society with empowered humans at the forefront. Vigilance was key for the squad. So it meant a lot to Oraheim that her friends trusted her to keep everything safe and ready for their return. Lisa and Hiyori were busy dealing with the remaining problems from the time with the blanks, so visuals and sense were their best bet for now. She summoned her shield, stopping the misshaped hollow, and leaving her exposed from the other half's attack. The monster's tongue came at her, only to stop an inch from her face as the creature froze, a paper charm stuck to its face.
What am I going to do with you?
She heard a familiar voice speak out as the other hollow disappeared for the moment.
Always getting into trouble. But I guess this time's my fault.
She turned to see her older brother, looking slightly annoyed. I should have started training you when you manifested your Shun Shun Rika. But that can wait till later, after I deal with these hollows. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers.
The SMA recruits new members, said after Ichigo fought the Fullbringers.
The Shinigami Men's Association, where the manliest of men gather together to indulge in the manly lifestyle.
Seeking the perfect path of macho, a search that could be going better.
Tetsuziman looked over his fellow associates, Lieutenants Kira, Hisagi, and Omida, Captain Yukitake, Akon from Squad 12, and the 3rd and 8th seat of Squad 4, Amura and Ajido. Usually, their group was always at odds with the Women's Association, but today was the mark of a brand new era for them. They were getting 3 new members from the hot new Squad 15.
My fellow men.
IBA spoke out, loud and proud in the open jacket, sunglasses attire of the SMA. Today, we greet new brothers to the Men's Association. Introducing, Caption Isshin, Lieutenant Ichigo, and third seat Yuryu. He called out as the rugged Kurosaki patriarch came in, dragging the unconscious bodies of Ichigo and Yuryu.
Nice to make your acquaintance,
Isshin said, flashing a confident smile.
What's wrong with those two?
Yukitake asked, almost worried.
I had to get them really drunk before they would actually join,
Isshin answered, just as the two began to stir. I said this would be good for them, but they were stubborn.
Yuryu,
Ichigo growled, his hollow healing fighting hard to fix the worst of his hangover.
I already know where to hide his body, Yuryu responded.
That wraps up this part of What If Ichigo Awoke his true powers to save his mother.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned.
Quick reminder.
What If copy system in Naruto will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel.
I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics.
What if Transmigrated in One Piece and becoming a Marine?
What if Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze? What if Transmigrated into a nightmare mode Dragon Ball world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next.
Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.